Big Verded Man here. Last night I was in a chat room on YouTube, and somebody there had asked about being bullied and what they should do. Now, they happen to be a Christian and are being made fun of because they're a Christian. I had a few words to offer in the chat, but I thought I should make a video talking about being bullied and what that is, how to maybe work through it, think about it, what to do, etc. Using my own experiences as a reference point. And there's tons of literature out there about such things, and there's probably videos that are far better than this, but this is my humble advice for this one particular person, my attempt to help at least one individual. So I think I'll start with the boy in the box story, which is one I've told on my blog and I've read here on YouTube before. And the link for it's in the description. I won't go through the whole story right now. Let's just kind of talk about it a little bit. There was a boy on our bus who, for whatever reason, had this huge box with him one day. And people were already making fun of him. And then he put the box on himself, and it got way worse. And I didn't really know why that was at the time. And it's only years later that I really understand what happened, this power dynamic of that if you see something weak, you attack it. And we are animals. We humans are an animal, just like all the other animals that are around. We're just more complicated in our brain than other animals. One could argue about how that works, but ultimately we are still hunters to some extent. There's a part of our brain that's called the lizard brain, that reacts on a very primitive level to things. And some of that is pack hunting, attacking the weak. And so kids were throwing things at this kid and saying things and jeering and making noises and just, whacking at the box and being awful because he was a target. He was alone, isolated, and weak, and then made himself appear even weaker by his action. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to make yourself into more of a victim. You don't want to show that you are a victim. You don't want to give off signs that you are an easy target. So crying, sometimes telling the adults or the authority figures, sometimes, although that can be a solution sometimes. You have to weigh the checks and balances there, don't get me wrong, but isolating yourself, not having at least a friend with you or a crowd that's going to be on your side, these are things that can show social weakness. And especially when people are young, that's when this sort of thing happens. But it can carry on to adulthood. Adults sometimes are just grown-up children. They haven't matured at all. They haven't left behind their petty ways. So as an adult, you go, well, but there's more. I have more ability to fight back, perhaps. I can arm myself. True, but the bullies can arm themselves as well. And, do you really want to escalate it to that level? No. Ideally, we want to live in a social way where we're not attacking each other with words or with weapons or whatnot. But in school, when you're young, you face this sometimes because you have peers that are trying to pick you apart. One of the things that I faced was what we called cuts. And I've talked about this before, but it's worth talking about here. There'd be people would insult you, and it was called cuts. And you were supposed to insult them back. Now, insulting them back made them kind of stop. Not really, but it pushed back. And you could do it in multiple ways. I tried to be very clever with it. Like I would go like this. I'd be like, see this? Reverse it. Like you have to reverse all these fingers. Ooh, it's a flippy bird off if you do that. But they have to think about what this means. And I said, reverse that. And then I walk away. And they're thinking, what the hell? What am I, And so I was trying to be more clever with how I came back at people. But if you didn't stand up for yourself verbally, many of the kids would begin to be aggressive towards you, physically aggressive. They needed attention. And the only way that they knew how to get attention was to be a jerk, to be an asshole. And so even though they were getting negative attention from you, at least they were getting attention. And it was somewhat of a game. I cut you, you cut me, and it's not playful in a way, but also it is. It's who's tougher, who can survive more. And I remember seeing this really crystal clearly towards the end of my time at that school, where I saw a friend of mine. Usually we didn't have class together, but for whatever reason that day we had a class together. And this other guy that liked to cut people, he started cutting on my friend, and my friend stands up like ready to fight him. And I'm like, hey, I'm right here. What about me? Insult me. Come on. And so he starts insulting me and I start insulting him back, which is what he wanted. He didn't really want a physical confrontation. He wanted the cuts. And so that diffused it. And now he was like in this kind of playful sort of zone. But that's not necessarily what's going on with this particular individual who's being made fun of. So why are they being made fun of? Well, they're a Christian. Well, okay, so what are they saying? Haha, you believe in this nonsense. You believe in, all these fairy tales or whatever. And it's a way to try to take them down using words. So there is a dialogue happening. There's an exchange of words going on. And this particular dialogue is called erratic dialogue. And it's something that we can all engage in and probably do at some point. Erratic dialogue is where the participants are trying to knock each other down with words. And the goal of that dialogue is to get to the deeper basis of that conflict. But the goal is usually never reached because you're too busy hurting each other with words. So here the goal is sometimes one and the same as the actual insult. That the goal is to just knock you down. The deeper basis of conflict is they want you to feel bad. Why? Well, to make themselves feel better to some extent. Also, because they don't understand you, and that non-understanding makes you the other, puts you on the out group, and so you're to be feared to some extent, but also you're to be made fun of because you're not in the in group. So you need to find your own in group. You need to find a group that if they aren't themselves Christians or what have you, that they don't care about that element of you, or you don't mention it as much, perhaps. Now, that might seem like you're giving in to the bullying, and to some extent, maybe, but you say, okay, yeah, I believe all this. And so what? You dismantle the words. You say, yeah, you're right. It is weird that I believe in it. And then you walk away. That dismantles the power. Or you could give back. You could insult back, and that stands your ground. Depending on the sort of people you're dealing with, if you're dealing with one or many, this changes the sort of strategy you might want to employ. And you might try one strategy one time and then a different strategy another. Now, as I said, bringing in authority, bringing in the adults, bringing in the ones that can take care of the situation, well, that can make you seem like a better target because, haha, you can't stand up for yourself. Now we're really going to pile, and I think that, I don't know what school is like now. I know what it was like when I was young. But I know that there is the increased security of guns and worries of school shootings and things like that. So if you believe that any of these kids might have a weapon and you have good reasons for that belief, don't just go on a belief, but if you see something or if they said something that alludes to them having a weapon, that might be an appropriate time to bring in the authorities. But other than that, it should be something that, yes, you handle yourself because you have to make a stand. Ultimately, that's the way to go. Now, when I was young, I used to kind of really hate how TV portrayed bullies because it's too simplistic. The bully would come, and then the kid would stand up to the bully, and usually it resulted in the bully being punched, and then that was it, and everything was fine because the guy stood up for him. Yay! And I'm like, no, that doesn't always work. That isn't always the solution. And sometimes you find that you have become the bully. And I found myself in that position more than once, where I started actively going after this other kid because I thought he didn't like me, and so I made it that I was going to fight him after school, and I kept taunting him and insulting him and giving him little notes of things to do that to do this. So then finally, the whole school had turned out. We were all ready to fight, but then his friend kept coming in, and I was like throwing it, pushing his friend back and like throwing him back, and like this is supposed to be a one-on-one, and the other guy's just standing there like ready. He doesn't want to fight me, by the way. And then of course the teachers showed up, and the whole thing dissolved. But I was being the bully towards that guy. And then the whole thing just kind of fizzled out because I stopped bullying that guy. And that was it. It was just done. There was a different time when I had kind of a rough day of it where it seemed like where these older, bigger kids than me were hitting me with these little newspapers. We would get these little tiny newspapers, and they were hitting me with them, and I went away from them, got away from them, and then I saw somebody that the sister of my friend, who would always hang out with this one guy, and I was like, it's trying to express my irritation at the day, and say, these guys kept hitting me with papers, and the guy picked up a paper and he went to hit me, and he actually hit my eye, and that was it for me. I exploded into anger, and I ran after him. And then he went all the way to his house, and he stood on his porch, and he's like, "You can't do anything to me now. I'm, safe. I'm home. I'm on my porch." Like, no, that doesn't work. And I grabbed him, and I threw him to the ground, and I sat on him, and I proceeded to hit his head into the pavement multiple times with my hand, like a basketball, bounce, bounce, bounce. And the parents came out and surrounded me and pulled me off, and I was quite angry to do that and unreasonable to do that. And I was the bully in that situation. And he was stupid to hit me, but it doesn't make what I did right. What I did was wrong. And then I avoided him for a while, only, because one, I didn't want to get into trouble with adults, but also I didn't want, I guess, I don't know if I thought about it consciously that, I didn't want him to think I was after him or anything like that. I don't know. Never apologized or made up as far as I remember, but it kind of just fizzled out. So you'll find yourself in different roles in life, in different places at different times. Sometimes you're the bully, sometimes you're being bullied. Words only have power when you give them power. So if you say, sure, it's weird that I believe in this stuff. You guys are right. Maybe I won't be a Christian anymore. If I did that, would you guys leave me alone? Maybe I won't talk about it anymore. Will you leave me alone then? Maybe logic would prevail. Maybe. But maybe that might be seen as capitulation. It might be seen as weakness. So again, you got to be careful. Maybe, and this is something that worked when I was younger, I just said to the guy that seemed like he was bullying me, I said, let's be friends. And then we were friends. And that was the end of that. So it really can just depend on what it is, how many people you're dealing with, and what it is they're saying. And I know that I can't give you specific advice on how to deal with the situation, but only broad brush strokes, that there's different strategies to employ. But ultimately, if you develop a thick skin and just say, it doesn't matter what's said, what matters is I'm okay with it. I'm okay with what I think, what I feel, and I don't care what they say. And to really not care what they say, but also give them back a bit of what you're getting verbally speaking might be useful. It's like, well, yeah, what I believe in is silly, but what you believe in is silly too. What do you believe in then? Fine, let's fight that fight then. Let's debate that. Let's argue about it then. Right? And so there, and you might think, but Deconverted Man, you're a skeptic. Why not just tell this kid, I don't know how old he is, but I'm assuming he's relatively young, but why not just tell him, don't be a Christian? That would be a solution. Well, yeah, but you can't just turn off belief. You can't do that. And I wouldn't want someone to do that even if they could, per se. I'd rather that they get to that position of non-belief through a logical process, through intellectual journey. I don't want them just to give up because people bully them into it. People join religions or cults for similar reasons, that they're bullied into it. That's not right. So I'm not going to give him advice of just give up being a Christian or pretend you're not a Christian. It might be that he or she is doing something that makes it annoying to them, like that they're bringing up Jesus a lot or something like that. There might be modified behavior that they can partake in that will lessen or get rid of this bullying. It just depends, again, how many individuals you're dealing with. Is it a lot? Is it a few? Is it always a group? Is it always one particular person? And the best, one of the ways is to get some friends and to be with those friends and maybe even have a conversation. Look, guys, these guys have been messing with me. You're on my side if they come again, right? Like, we're going to stand together, right? And so that might be a way to handle the bullies is actually, to have your own friend group and maybe even get to know one of them separately and say, look, I don't know why you have this problem with me. Why don't we why don't we why don't we, you know, why don't we stop this, and you can, and we can be friends instead of enemies. Why are you insulting me? Why is this such a problem for you? Maybe it's bothering you a lot. Why is it bothering you that this is the thing that I believe shouldn't matter to you? Why are you after me because of these beliefs? What do you gain from that? And you think, well, but that's sophisticated language. Yeah, it's reason. Now, some people are going to respond to reason with reason. Some aren't. Depends on the type of person you're dealing with. And if it's somebody that doesn't respond to reason, and just proceeds with more mockery, then responding in kind might be your only recourse. But again, these are different strategies to try to partake in. I had, I think, some other thoughts that I was going to have here. Let's see what else. Yeah, feelings and logic. Okay, so I was talking a bit about that. So logic makes it simple. This is an ad hominem attack. It's an attack on the person, not my ideas. So what? Yeah, sure, I'm an insane, crazy person. And what's your point? What I believe in is lunacy. Sure, I agree. And so what? Now what? If I disagree, then that's it. You're done. It's like, well, what? We won? Yeah, you win. You're right. You win. Okay, bye. But we don't want to win. We want to hurt you. You can't hurt me. I accepted whatever you said. I'm done. Bye. I don't care. That is one approach to take. But emotion can supersede your rational thinking, your logical thinking. And that happens to me, it happens to many people. It's happened to me more than once, sadly. I do have a temper issue that I've sadly fallen prey to more than once on YouTube. And people, I'm sure if they dig, can find examples of me going completely nuts. Even on my own channel, it's around a bit. I've learned to control it with therapy and with medication and things like this. And it might be worth, having a counselor to talk to, or if you can, confide in your parents, goodness gracious, or maybe somebody that's a little bit older, but not a parent, an older sibling or an older somebody, in the school or something. But ideally, we want the logic over the feelings. You're still going to have the feelings. It's not one or the other. It is a balance of the two. And it's not persecution. And I think that's another sort of wrong motif. Like Christians often go, oh, you're being persecuted. That's good. Yes, yes. No, I don't really agree with that. Well, I don't agree with many parts of Christianity, but I don't think that you should celebrate that you're being persecuted. One, you're really not being persecuted. I mean, persecution in my mind means like torture, like physical torture. You're getting verbal assault from kids. That's not nothing, but it's not physical torture, right? And secondly, that you should embrace it or celebrate it or be glad of it. I don't think that those emotions are appropriate to assign to it, because this is something that whether they were attacking you because of your beliefs or for what you wear or don't wear or how your hair is combed or whatever it is, doesn't matter. The thing that they're going after verbally isn't changed unless you respond to it in a way that changes how they perceive you. So you go from looking like a good target to looking like a very bad target. So they go off and try to find somebody else to pick on. And that does mean standing up for yourself. Whether and using words, and hopefully not resorting to violence, because that sort of thing can get you expelled or whatever. I don't know, but you know. So those are my thoughts on this. Broadly speaking, of being bullied, and I have my blog post that might help with to some extent. I don't ultimately know that this will help him or anyone for that matter, but it was a concern that I did take seriously. That somebody was asking online, what do I do about being, I'm being bullied, and it doesn't, to me, it's like doesn't matter that you're being bullied because you have a belief in Christianity. It could have been anything, and I'd still respond in the same way. I am a skeptic. I don't believe in God, but being bullied is still wrong, even though I don't think there's a God. And so hopefully something I said helped. I don't know. All right. All right. Rudolph is on his own little chat. I don't even know what you're talking about. It's nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Brian left. Nerdy's here. No, okay. So nothing relevant to the conversation at hand is going on in my chat. At any rate, leave your thoughts. Have you been bullied? Have you been a bully? How do you have your own ideas to offer to this young man or woman we don't know? How do you handle being bullied for a belief or for a lack of belief, for that matter? If you were picked on because you were an atheist, perhaps you could share some stories of that. Or maybe maybe you've never been bullied. I don't know. Maybe you got lucky. But if you have some thoughts on it, please share in the comments. And hopefully that will help this particular individual or somebody else that might come along. We never know. So all we can do is throw out the good ideas that we think we have and hope that somebody somewhere is helped in some way by those ideas. See you next time. Yeah, that's a good way to end. See you next time. Logic. I need a way to end these sort of things. Like, what do I say? Lobsters? Yeah, lobsters. That's good. It's a good way. Lobsters exist. See you next time. Lobsters exist. That's my ending. Not see you next time. Stop saying see you next time. See you, lobsters. Yes.